preparing live stream. Okay, well, we're back. Okay, good. Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't know what happened there. You know, my friend Mark there at Facebook probably hit something. And there we are. So we are streaming again. So there we go. So Melissa,
Yes.
I'm going to read that again.
Okay.
Because I don't know what happened the first time, but we're going to try this again.
I'm gonna get a big head hearing that again.
I know,
Okay,
going
here we
through all
go.
of that again. So Melissa, right? So if y'all got to hear this before, here we go. Is it more than a transformational relationship life coach? She is a guiding force, insightful writer, and dynamic host of the influential podcast Gumball Love. Melissa's mission is helping high achieving women break free from the repetitive cycle of attracting emotionally unavailable men. With her revolutionary concept, Gumball Love, Melissa unveils the intricate dance of relationships, exposing attention seeking behaviors as a telltale sign of intimacy avoidance. These behaviors often are mistaken for an intense and genuine connection, lead many women down the path of deceptive love. Gumball Love, right, which is your company, is not just about finding love. It is a transformational journey that unravels patterns, fostering genuine connections, exposes the fantasy elements that often masquerade as true identity. You know, I love what you talk about as far as illuminating the path. And for y'all that were maybe on a little bit earlier before we got cut off, I'm going to go ahead and hit the record button as well. Is one of the things that I believe, as I've listened to you through the years, Melissa, is that, you know, there are women out there that are single that need to hear this message. And there are those of us who are friends who walk along the side besides our friends and watching them sign up for this over and over and over and over again, the up and the down. But I also believe that your message is powerful for those of us who are looking for leaders, and that the same patterns that happen in these relationships can happen with us. Somebody comes into my Mary Kay world and they got ding, 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 ding. They check all the boxes. And then I pour all of this into them. I'm like, she's the one, she's the one. And then boom, the minute there is something shiny, they are gone. And I'm just left there holding my heart again going, and if I'm not really careful, it can steal my hope, my dream, where I'm going if I just keep signing up for the same thing again and again. So we met back in 2000. We have the same senior director, Connie Lamp. And, you know, so it's been really fun watching that. So let's go back to where you and I met in the year 2000. You were single. You had a high paying job. Looked like $1 million. In fact, you look exactly the same as whenever I met you 23 years ago. The thing that I always told you is that you are somebody that is going to make a huge difference, because when you walk into a room, Melissa, I'm telling you, you take energy in a room from 400 to 800. There, you have got that chemistry, that others focused, and you are one of the most humble servant leaders that I know in my life. And I am so honored to bring you into our Sparkle sisterhood. So let's talk about where you started. How'd you get here?
Oh, thank you so much, Diana. You are just never a disappointment. Even back then, I just remember I would go to any event. It was like, oh my gosh, Diana Sumter's going to be there. We have to go, because you were just talk about somebody who brings the energy up in a room. I mean, your events were packed, standing room only. And it was like, you better bring your guest if Diana's going to be there, because you would just do all the selling for us. It was so, so great. So thank you so much. So this is perfect timing to talk about this in this way, because for a long time, my concept focused on women trying to find men. And that was my journey. So back in 2000, you know, I was 21, I believe, if the math is right, just early 20s. Bought my first house. It was a $180,000 house in 2000. So it was just, I was making all kinds of money, but feeling very intimidating to guys. I would get that all the time. You're just intimidating. Today's language is you're in your masculine energy. So can't tell you how much I hate that. And we can talk about that later. But like, I think that if I was 21 now, I would be obsessed with, I can't be too masculine because I'm going to scare away the guys. And I was always just trying to figure out this exists today because I got obsessed with trying to figure out what is it that why am I not finding love? Why do other people find it? Why is this so hard for me? Because I would get into a relationship just like you described, where you get all excited about somebody coming in and Mary Kay, like, oh my gosh, she's amazing and she's the best. And you get all excited. And then it's like, wait, what did I miss? Like, how did I get fooled by that? And that would really irritate me, because I thought, I'm smart. I can read people well. But for some reason, as I look back, I would think, oh, I read people well in corporate life, but not in romantic life. But you know what? I wasn't reading them well either place, because I was also getting fooled in both worlds to a certain extent. But in your corporate life or your work life, your identity is kind of, you have more of an identity when you're at work, because you can associate it to work. But when it comes to romance or personal relationships, it's just you. And if you don't have much of an identity, you don't know yourself, it's hard to connect when you don't know who you are. And I had no idea that I didn't know who I was. I thought I did. I thought I had, I didn't even think about interests, hobbies, things to explore. I was just so focused on working and trying to be skinny. Like, those were the two things. Like, I can't be fat and I need to make money. Like, those were the two things that I just obsessed over. And I was obsessed about skincare. Why I did Mary Kay back then. I was like, I can't look old, right? So maybe a little vain, but I was just terrified of those things, like fat, ugly, and not having money. So, we just get into that zone of thinking about those things. And I thought just, well, eventually I'll find this guy, right? I'll fall in love. And I would watch all the shows and the fairy tales. And, I could literally recite Cinderella when I was a little kid. My little cousins and we could just let's do Cinderella. And we could recite the entire movie line by line. We watched it over and over. So I had all of the Cinderella fairy tale dreams in my head, that eventually it would happen. So all through my 20s, it didn't happen. And then it's less cute in your 30s. You're like, okay, I'm hitting 30 and now I'm still not finding the guy. And at 36, I moved to New York City. Yep. It's a lot of stuff in between, but I started to make that connection that I'm not living the lifestyle and where I want to be. The Midwest wasn't a fit for me. I just kept having this yearn to be in Manhattan, but who doesn't understand that more is people in the Midwest. They have no idea why you want to live in this giant city that they think is scary and mean, and that has no grass and it's just concrete. But to me, that was so enticing. So long story short, that was the first step into pursuing the life that I wanted, the lifestyle. And the weirdest thing about me is that I was in search of love, but I also developed this concept called gumball love in the process. So I never thought I would talk about gumballs in my career this much, but when you said that person that thinks that they know everything, I don't know if that got into the first recording or not, but you were saying, like, don't you know the person, we tried this once and we're redoing it, but you said, don't you know that person that just has to know everything? And you're just like, fine, yep, you know everything. That's actually one of the gumballs. It's called Convince Me. And it's a person who they love for you to try to convince them, and they get attention by them disagreeing. They disagree with you and you try to convince them, and that's an attention-seeking behavior. It's the white gumball. And so the whole purpose of this, or the whole idea, is it's transactional relationships. Some people are transactional and some people are making investments in you. And so the idea behind the gumball machine is some people are just putting in that quarter, convince me. Oh, you don't think I'm right? Convince me. And then they just love watching you, or all the other flavors, which we can get into, but it's really in the transactional nature. That's the differentiator that most of us don't see. And so we end up getting a gumball, or giving a gumball, or getting a gumball. Like, we all love attention, right? But when somebody is just there to complete transactions and they're not making investments in you, that's how you start to see the people that you really should surround yourself with, and the people that you go, okay, that person's a convince me gumball person. They think they're all right, always right. So they like me to give them that gumball. So maybe that person is named mom or dad or brother or sister. So you can't just like remove them from your life. But sometimes we have gumball family members. We're in relationships, very close friends, that all of a sudden you realize a lot of this is transactional. And so my whole mission and purpose is helping you understand how to deal with those people, whether they're romantic or non-romantic. So this year I'm expanding this whole concept because for a long time, for my whole time doing this, it was like all about the guy wanting the gumballs. But we all love a sugar high. We all love a dopamine hit. But like my husband said, it can be a part of the whole, but it can't be the main driver. So when
Right.
all of a sudden getting gumballs and sugar highs is the main driver in the relationship, that's when you know it's a problem. But of course, a compliment here or there, or getting that attention is perfectly fine and normal. But what I help people see is when it crosses over, because it's not always narcissism. Narcissism is people that lack empathy. And that's a very small percentage of people that have no empathy. So they're out there, and maybe some people on here are like, yes, and I've dated one, or I married one, or I divorced one, or whatever.
Somebody said
Like,
I was one. Maybe I am one.
you are not, for sure.
No,
You
no,
are
no,
not.
no, no, no. That is so true. So one of the things I just to kind of just go back to this really quick, and then I want to dive into. I've got like about 9 hours worth of questions, but y'all voted, right? 20 to 30 minutes when we started. So what we talked about in here, where we're talking about the white gumball, is I think it's so amazing that it worked out that chapter 2, which is getting your toolbox together. And last week we talked about the spray, our glitter spray. We just wipe people off the board, right? Say, bless their little hearts, they're doing the best they can. And then you squirt yourself with some glitter. I talked about having a Jesus filter on the one that just did not work, the recording, that whenever you're around people and they do bizarre things, or they hurt your feelings, or they keep repeating. And so somebody said to me the other day, they said, how are you so nice all the time? I'm like, I'm not. Like, what starts my first thought, if you heard it, like, you'd be a puddle if you had any idea how mean I am when it first comes to mind. But with my Jesus filter, and again, we have all religious affiliates, so you call your filter whatever you need to. You are loved, you belong here, right? So no judgment here, no guilt, no shame, no judgment here. Mine is a Jesus filter, right? So everything that I do is got to go through that filter of, how would Jesus see this person? And that also comes in relationships. I think it is a big deal. And then, like I had shared, Melissa and I share the same mentor, Connie Lamp. And, Melissa and I, we were a handful. I came into Mary Kay at 23. So did she. We were high powered alpha female. I do want to dig into this masculine, feminine thing, whatever that is. Like, they just always love to put a label on a powerful woman that has just got a little snide something, right? I think that's so crazy. But one of the things that Connie said to Melissa and I that is so true is that if you have got chaos, conflict, and confusion in more than one area of your life, you have to look in the mirror and take responsibility. And so we talked about, does your need to prove yourself good enough in your relationships create chaos? Let's park there. Let's start with that first one. Does the need to prove yourself good enough to create chaos in your relationship? So let's talk about that in the terms of gumball love. Somebody who's got a low self-esteem that has to, do everything they can to feel good enough. What does that look like? And what are some ways somebody could counter that if that's how they're living right now?
If they're living to where they just constantly feel like they have to prove they're good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's actually the Convince Me, the white gumball. So there's
the
8
same
different
one. Okay.
flavors. It's the same one because that's prove yourself to me, convince me. So you have somebody, if you feel like you have to prove yourself, then you haven't been in a pattern with someone that is constantly giving you that, commenting on things or doubting you, and it comes from their own insecurity, right? So, but when you're around somebody that does this enough, you start to believe it. You start to think, you know what, you're just, I used to get like, why do you have red fingernails? Why do you always have to get red nail polish? And then I'd think like, I don't know, is it too bright? No, not too bright for my husband, who is an alpha male, right? Yeah. Like, he never even, alpha males do not think about these things. So if you're getting comments like that, or you're in a relationship where you feel like everything you're doing is being questioned, or you have to convince, or you push against resistance, all they're doing is putting in the quarter and saying, convince me why you're doing that. And the convincing part, the proving yourself, is soothing them. As you're working for their approval, they feel soothed and validated, because in reality, a lot of times a person who is feeling insecure, they want you to be convincing them all the time, because they are feeling like maybe you're going to leave me, because maybe these red fingernails are going to attract attention. And then some guy's going to see me and steal me away from him. And so they are always trying to put you down and get you to feel less and less, so that then you're less of a risk for them to leave. There's a lot more to convince me. Sometimes convince me is like I have, we'll just say, someone in my life who has a PhD, and it's just like it always comes back to that PhD. Well, you know, or if you watch Jeopardy with this person, they're always like, oh, I know that answer. Oh, yes, that's right. And it's like they didn't know the answer, but they want you to think. So it's just the superior, it's a need to feel superior, but it's rooted in insecurity. So that's what's actually going on. But when we don't understand, we don't have the awareness of it. All like when clients come to me, they're still talking about what's said and trying to understand, is this true? I do this, I do that. Most of the time they're doing 50 things that are evidence to the contrary. But when you're in a relationship like that, they get you beat down to the point where you start to believe it. And you could take even the strongest person, you and I, Diana, we could get into a bad relationship, and pretty soon over time, it will just chip away. It's really hard to fight against that if it's in your home, in your life on a regular basis. And so my whole brand is about making you aware of who those transactional people are, so that you stop when they put the quarter in, they don't get a gumball. And that's a whole other response too. When they don't get the gumball and they're used to getting it, then they think something's wrong with you. And you're like, yeah, I'm just not going to give you the dopamine hit. So that's the cycle of that.
So just to kind of drill down, and I've heard you before, but just to kind of, so are you suggesting, like, who is the gumball machine? So kind of explain that, kind of what you're talking about. Like, you're talking about this person puts the quarter in, or you put the quarter in. Let's kind of explain that whole concept, because once people get that, I'm telling you, it is, you can see it in your brain when you start seeing people react like that. So explain, how did you come up with the gumball? You know, what roles do people play in that? When you talk about who's putting in the quarter?
So anybody can be putting in a quarter. The person putting in the quarter is the one that wants the sugar high, right? So when you're around somebody and you feel like, you know, when you're around somebody and you're having the conversation and you just feel like, I can't just talk, I have to, they change the subject and they make it about them. And so you're trying to say something, and then all of a sudden we're idolizing them. Oh, now they're telling a story about them. Oh yeah, that was great. And then somebody might say, now what were you saying? And then you start speaking, and there's that idolize me person. They have to have that spotlight. And so they're always like, oh, somebody else is getting the gumballs, I want them. And so, and we don't have to get caught up in who's putting in the quarter or the gumball, because I know that's the hardest part about my brand. It's like, you just want to think of it as, who wants the sugar high and how do they go about getting it? And sometimes we're getting a sugar high and we don't even realize it. Sometimes people can be complimenting you and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm feeling really good. And that's a person that's just buttering you up because they want to cash in on the transactions later. So I don't want people to get too confused about who's putting in the quarter, who's putting in the gumball, because I just want you to think of it as, is this relationship transactional? Does this person give something to get something? Are they just trying to get attention? And what kind of attention are they looking for? Does that help?
That's great. That is great. Because it's, you know, that they're pushing your buttons, right? So that you respond in a way that makes them feel better. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what are some other examples that might look like in a relationship, or if somebody is in a, you know, where they're looking for a team, or if they're like starting a nonprofit and they're building their team or their donors, or you know, just like kind of go across the board. What would some of these unhealthy transactional relationships, what are some signs that we could look for that, wow, they're not investing, right? This is transactional.
In what kind of an example did you say? I'm
Any,
sorry.
could be a relationship or coaching. Like what are some of the signs? Like when you see a relationship, where do you go, oh my gosh, that's a gumball situation. Like she is really feeding into him, or that sort of thing like that.
Yeah.
What are some signs of an unhealthy relationship?
Okay, so one of the biggest flavors is the blue gumball, which I call pity me. And we get caught up in feeling like I really care about this person, but they've got a lot of problems. And you talk through those, this can be men or women. You talk through the problems, you have solutions. They don't want the solution. They just keep wanting to talk about the problem. And you feel like if I can just help them, if I can just get them to get past this point, then everything will be great. And so a lot of women get caught up in helping somebody because we often replace, one of my clients said this, she goes, we replace love with feeling needed. So man, all that pity makes you feel super needed. And like, I feel sorry for him. I want to help him. I want to be there for him. And you feel like if he sees how much I'm there for him, if she sees how much I'm there for her, I'm helping her, then eventually we're going to get past this and we're going to get to that fake place that you create, that fantasy of what you think is going to happen when you get through this. But what we don't realize when it's transactional, the pity me person, there's 8 flavors, so people can want all 8 flavors. We don't have time to go through all 8, but you can go on my website and get a download, or you can DM me, and I'm developing a whole quiz where you'll be able to do all the signs, like what kind of a person am I dealing with? What kind of attention do they like? What am I doing that I don't even know that I'm doing? Wait a minute, I feel bad for them. I want to help them. But if you keep feeling bad for somebody, that you feeling bad for them, you wanting to help them, you wanting to support them, that's what they want. They don't actually want to get better.
Mm.
So
Oh,
you need to be able to see when you're just giving the gumball and they're like, oh yeah, they just love when people are focused on their problems. I mean, Diana, I've had to run from neighbors, and there's a lot of elderly people here in the city. In my old neighborhood, I mean, it was like, there's that lady that I'm going to learn everything about her knee replacement. If I don't, I'd have to be like, I'm sorry, I'm on the phone, and I'd have to, because I knew, God love her, Edna, she just wants to tell me and tell me and tell me. She doesn't want to hear about any, of my homeopathic remedies. She doesn't care. She's just going to tell me about her meds. And finally I started realizing Edna just wants to talk about Edna. She's a sweet old lady, but she's a pity me gumball lady. And I want to see, pretty soon I'd be like, I've been standing here talking to Edna for 20 minutes trying to solve her problems, and she does not want her problem solved. She wants me to just sit there and pity her and pity her. Well, tell me more, waste more of my time. Well, while we talk about and I started to feel like, God, am I a jerk? But in those moments, I was taking my power back. And my therapist, who was amazing, he would say, Melissa, you need to invest in people that are actually hearing it. My little sister and big brothers, big sisters, any time I spent with her, if I told her eat spinach, she would eat spinach. If I told her, like she tried out for cheerleading and I said, you need to practice for 2 hours a day if you really want to she would do it. She would appreciate my investment, where other people, they don't appreciate what you're giving. And so they just take from you. It feels good that you're giving them attention, but they're not seeing the value of who you are, what you're doing, how much you're investing. They just need that dopamine over and over and over again. And it's sad. Sometimes it's really sad. And sometimes you can say, you know what? This person does just need these gumballs, and they don't understand. And I'm going to do this out of the goodness of my heart. But I also know that I can't have a deep relationship with this person.
Yeah.
Because all they really exist on is this transactional level. So
wow, this is so good.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm gonna kind of look through the comments on here too, and because we've got a couple questions on here. I love those examples, and it doesn't mean that you can't. I think sometimes when we say we need to remove them from our life, we're not talking about being rude or anything. So we don't make time for them, right? And it's not that you don't give somebody a hug or do something, but it is not You're not going to just keep investing over and over. And to me, that kind of leads into kind of the difference between like this gumball relationship and narcissism. I feel like that term, like that is overused because it really, I'm not saying that there aren't some people out there, but I love where you talked about narcissism really is no empathy. So sometimes they can kind of be disguised, but once, especially as Americans, if we get a term, we're going to put it on everybody. Like you make that term match somebody that is not doing what maybe you want them to do. Can you kind of dig down on that for somebody to kind of be looking at a relationship? What is, how do you kind of know the difference in somebody being a narcissist and maybe somebody who's just looking for a sugar high from you?
Okay, so I'm going to stay with pity me because right now in the quiz I'm creating, I've created red flags, yellow flags, and green flag people. So I'm going to give you so the red flag is someone who uses their sad stories as an excuse for their bad behavior. So they do bad things, but they manipulate you to give them sympathy. So that's your creepiest, pity me, right? That's they are avoiding accountability because they're going to use the sad story to manipulate. Okay. So a yellow flag would be somebody that is just telling you a little bit too much about their life. On The Bachelor, when it's the cocktail hour and, I'm these girls have cleavage spilling out everywhere. And that's the moment. Hey, I just met you at a cocktail party. And by the way, I'm going to tell you this really traumatic story from my childhood. And I'm just okay, when you have cleavage, you can't tell your childhood story, trauma story, but it's I was what do you want this guy to focus on? But anyway, that's just what are you doing? You can't share your childhood trauma story in this moment. It's because she's looking for the reaction, right? This isn't the time to share this. So that's a yellow flag. Maybe she, in her mind, she was I really want this guy to know me, but she doesn't understand the boundary there. This isn't the time or the place. And so it's still on that transactional level. But the green flag person is maybe that they've had something. We've all had traumas. So healthy people seek professional help and they communicate, but they communicate at a level that doesn't necessarily make you feel like you have to fix anything, or, a healthy person's I went through a lot, but I have a therapist. We've worked through it. I came out on the other side and it was great. You can share without the person feeling like they have to be oh my God, I'm so sorry. What happened? Because then you're lured in and now you're standing there at the grocery aisle talking to somebody you don't know for 15 minutes. I used to do this all the time. I would feel bad and I didn't understand. I was just getting sucked in to giving attention, versus sometimes you can really meet somebody and have that divine connection where you are really connecting, but you're connecting on higher level things. You're not giving them gumballs. They're actually asking questions. So this is how you can differentiate. If I'm going to work with Diana Sumter and I'm really the next national sales director, your non-gumball person is going to appreciate the time. If they get your time, they're going to be asking questions and really learning, and you're going to see more of an investment and an appreciation, versus are they just sitting there getting pep talks and soaking it in and feeling better about themselves, but they don't have an appreciation. When you work for Mary Kay and I'm into Mary Kay headquarters, you have an appreciation for Mary Kay, the person. You understand the brand, you understand the products, you have the whole appreciation for the people involved, the dedication. Those are your investors. Those are people that are this is more than just me. This is for other people and they want to help other people. I think that's your biggest differentiator too, is this person helping anybody, or do they have any interest in helping other people, or is it just all about them? And that's where I think it can look like narcissism. But a lot of people just have this is something they may not be aware of, and they're not a bad person. I can think of gumball guys I dated that are not some of them were narcissists, but very few, maybe 2. But the others were just very much attention seeking And attention seeking is also intimacy avoiding. If I'm seeking attention, I'm avoiding you really getting to know me. So that's the biggest differentiator. And that's what you want, and especially in romance. If someone is always trying to get a gumball, they're performing or pretending, or they're using that dopamine high to keep a distance, because your true connections are people that they know you and you know them. And there's a deep connection that goes beyond those transactions. It goes into that, those are your true friends. The person you can messy bun, no makeup, and have coffee with on a Saturday morning, that's your girlfriend. It's your ride or die. They don't care what your face looks like. They just want to spend time with you. And you could be talking about your manicure, to the book you read, to your grandma's health condition. It doesn't matter. They're just there for all of it. And they're going to hear you and listen to you all the way through.
Oh my God. This is so good. I've taken like 3 pages of notes here. I really love, and this is new, the red flag, the yellow flag, the green flag. I'm really, really excited. So I will be posting your website so that people can go up, and especially as you're starting with that. I love how you can tell the difference, right? About the non-gumball, they appreciate, and that they really do want to learn. You know, I work with a lot of people, you know, that I'm an affirmer, you know, that's my gift is encouragement. So a lot of people are drawn to me because that's my default, but then they're also, you know, like, I want to be coached, and I'm like, you probably really don't. Because
Yeah.
you know, like, because there's some people that I have, you know, that I work with, like, I'm just like, you know, you need to do this and this, and then they go do it, right? There's no drama. But with so many people, like, it's got to be so layered, that it's even hard to figure out what it is that we're doing. So just a couple of questions on here too. I know we just got a few more minutes. This is so good. So let's see, Mary Beth says, you know, why do we have to have those labels? That is so true. Lauren says, if only my younger self could have heard this. How did you come up with the gumball idea? Which is, I think, is a good question. So if you can jot that down, how did gumball come around? How did that happen?
It's the weirdest thing. My sister was just telling me a story of a divorce lawyer who told his client, every time he puts in a quarter, you give him a gumball. Stop giving him gumballs. It's a little bit, is a friend of hers. And it was just, when he said that about her soon to be ex-husband, that line stuck with me. It was like, I remember where we were in the car, everything. It just was like, every time he puts in a quarter, you give him a gumball. Stop giving him gumballs. It was like, oh, interesting. What was the gumball? And in the moment, she was just fighting with her husband via text. And the lawyer was annoyed that she was taking their time, that they were doing the divorce stuff. And she kept showing him her phone and typing back. So he was watching this text fight happening. And he was just like, you're just giving him the gumball. And I thought, that's interesting. It's just, he's getting, what's the gumball? That's what I was like, what's the gumball if they're just fighting? Because a lot of times we think of gumballs as the sugar high in a happy way, but he still wanted attention from her, even when they were in the bad part of the relationship. So I asked her, what was he like in the beginning? Oh, he was amazing. He was the best guy ever. He was super romantic. So you get gumballs, people that like that kind of attention. It's positive when they're in a good mood, and then they still want attention even when they're mean. So whether they're happy or they're mean, they still want attention. And so all of the 8 flavors cover everything. I've been working with these 8 flavors for almost 4 years, because all my clients say, I love how data driven you are. As much as I am a talker, this concept is a lot of data. It is. I have done 15 years of research just on attention seeking and how it differentiates from narcissism or all those other things. Like, I don't know if I have any girls that when you're with a guy, you just Google every possible behavioral disorder they could have to try to understand why they're doing what they're doing. Like, okay, is it, you know, histrionic? Is he a narcissist? Does he have grandiose sense of self-worth? Where did that derive? And then you're like into his family history, and you're like, I bet it came from his mom. I wonder what his grandma was like. I would be paying my therapist to analyze this stuff. And it was like, where does this end? And so this concept helps you see, is this person worth it? are they, how bad are they on the attention? Some people like attention. Over the years, like some people, they like attention, but they're also good friends. And we call it, might be a little gumball-y here and there, they might want a little few gumballs. We all love it sometimes, but they're not, your whole relationship with them is not transactional. It's not the main driver, but you might see them like the compliments a little bit more than the average person or whatever. So that's what, people in my world, I hope, when this goes viral, if I can get this packaged, because it's been a long time of working through
We're going to
this.
be a part of that. All these
Yes,
Sparkle sisters, we're going to help drive that. And because I believe what you're sharing is so important. And I don't know, I have not seen this information anywhere else. And I will tell you, I love that you're adding in more dimensions, because again, all of the things that you're talking about for somebody like me that has been married. I mean, basically I was born and then I was married. I met Tom 2 months after I turned 18. I'm 60 now. So, we've just been together forever. Then you would have a tendency to go, and we have a great relationship. We have a great marriage most of the time, not all the time, but there are seasons. But what I was going to say is that people would have a tendency to be, I don't need this message, but the messaging is anybody that you are going to invest your time in, whether it is for coaching, building your teams and those things. The one question Bonnie said is, so yellow and red people don't want help, just your ear. They just want you to hear them. Is that what you were saying when you were talking about the red flag and the yellow flag? In other words, they really don't want your advice. They just want you to listen.
That's a pretty good summation in one category. Sure. There's a lot more colors, but a lot of times, they don't, when you're talking about pity me, as someone who just wants you just to listen to me talk. But if you have, when you have a legit solution, someone brings a problem and you're like, oh, I know what vitamin you need, or you need this blood workup, or you need, oh, I know I have the perfect product for you. It's like, and then they seem like they lose excitement, and you're like, oh, what happened? I have a solution. So your non-gumball person's like, send me the link, I'm buying it today. Like somebody who really knows you and they know you, like people know I do my research. So we were at my husband's boss's house. We recommended the Joovv red light therapy, and he was ordering it on his phone in like 5 seconds of his time, because he just knows, like, we do our research. And so it's not about the pity, it's about the solution. And you can just start to see, and over time, you'll just know when you're talking to gumball people, because you'll get a fatigue in your body.
Oh, true.
You'll start to get tired because you're working to convince, you're working to entertain them, you're working to pity them. There's too much effort coming out of you and no investment being made. So it's like, maybe this is the best visual. Like you're sitting there and they're focused on this versus you. They're like, ooh, what can I get one of those? Can I get one of those? Like, oh, that's a pity me. Oh, that's an arouse me. We didn't even talk about that. But there are the people that are just, they want the sex. And this is women that are in these texting sexy conversations with their hot, it's all easy when he looks like George Costanza. But when he's like, you're Ryan Reynolds or whatever, and all of a sudden he's sending you sexy text messages, it can be really confusing. Is he into me, or does he just like the dopamine of the sexy conversation? And how do you know it's transactional versus relational or transformational? If anyone can think of a better opposite of transactional, I don't love any of the words, but it's really someone who's there for you because of you, that is really enjoying your company more than they would enjoy a dopamine hit or an attention fix.
Yeah, so true. In our world of Mary Kay, we talk about transactional and relational, and that is the two things that we talk about in Mary Kay. And that's so true. There's givers and takers. Just bottom line, there's people that I work with that take. And they don't bother me because they're consistent, right? I just don't invest my heart. In other words, I become transactional with them. Like the one thing of working with a lot of people, and then this will kind of be the last thing, because I know our time is up. I seriously could talk to you all day, but I think, that you do a little counseling with me here, but like whenever I have people that are takers, right? Then I become transactional. I give them exactly what they need and then I move on. Like I'm not sharing anything anymore. If those that are relational with me, in other words, they're giving back, they're working, they're, doing all the things that you're talking about, then I'm going to invest the time. But I have learned I am a giver, big time over giver, that I looked up one day and all I had around me were takers. And I was busy all the time, but I was not moving up the scoreboard because all they did was take. They didn't perform, they didn't give back, and then they all left. Because whenever I stopped giving them all parts of me, they went somewhere else for somebody else to go fill up their cup, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
through the years, I've just watched somebody, and if they're a taker, then I'm nice. I give them what they need, but I do not go all in with people like that.
Yes, I think you nailed it. I don't really think I can add much to that. It's just, you do become, when you see somebody who you complete the if you have to complete a transaction, you do, just to make them happy.
Yeah.
Or this is my favorite way to think of this. When you walk into like a networking event where it's, I call it small talk hell. I hate small talk, but you can immediately, one of the flavors is the idolize me people. They want everyone talking about them, and they'll talk about their lawnmower for 14 hours because they think that's super interesting. So you start to recognize who are those takers and who are the givers. That's a better, more broad way to put it. And so, yeah, you just, I have a phrase, observe and preserve. You just observe them, but you preserve your energy, because there's a temptation, and it took me years to stop talking to Edna about her knee surgery. Like I can't do it, because I would be you're right, all of your time is gone and you're not moving the needle. And so once you recognize who those people are, then you don't invest like you would in other people, because bottom line is they're not worth the investment. There are people that if you invest in them, they will grow. Well, I almost knocked my gumball machine over. If you invest in them, they will grow, and your investment will, produce fruit, and it'll multiply forever. But the takers, it's just going to end up being a bunch of chewed up gumballs. It doesn't, it's just, there's nothing left from that. So you're absolutely right. And it took me a long time, because I am an overgiver too, but it's really fun to overgive with other overgivers.
Yeah.
Like my husband is an overgiver. We'll be like, stop overgiving, you're overgiving, but we both do it. And so when you find your match, who's somebody who gives like you give, then and you focus on the friends that give like you give, and you stop talking so much to the friends that don't. And look, this is an auditing reconciliation process. It takes it's hurtful. Like, ooh, I don't like to let go of that relationship because I like that person. But then you start to become aware of how transactional it is. Mm-hmm. And eventually you really start to focus on those people. And this is the thing, the people that are not transactional are the lowest maintenance people in your life.
Right.
They Absolutely. Will be, yeah. And they're the kind that you can not call them for 6 months and they're like, hey, they're still happy to hear from me. They're not mad about anything. They're not touchy. So think about those people and invest more in them, because sometimes we're so focused on our gumball people that we forget about the really good ones, because they're the gems, right? They're priceless and ageless, and the relationships usually stay pretty well intact with low maintenance. But that's what I really found through this process, is just going deeper with those people and appreciating that. So I started to appreciate that so much, and just falling in love with the friends that you have, even if it's just one right now, that's okay. But then as you start to use this process, you deepen those that are really going to last and worth the investment, and it will also invest in you.
That's so true. And you're so, I mean, I think about you and I probably didn't talk for, I don't know, 15 years. And, it was like, we never stopped talking, like, where are those people in your life? We just picked up where we were left off. There was no guilt. Why didn't you call me? There was none of that. And for y'all that are you're in the midst of building teams, like whatever that is, take a look at the people that you are bringing in. Are you exhausted right? I mean, I've been in Mary Kay, this is my 37th year. I'm the only time that I've ever been exhausted in Mary Kay is whenever I have surrounded myself with takers. And then what happens, I feel like we get up in the morning, we're like, God, please, please bring the people in my life. Please bring the people that you've anointed and appointed, and they're divinely appointed these people to be in my life. But you can't see them because you're so busy over here handing out a gumball to this one. You're great and you're wonderful and you're blah, 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 right over here walking on eggshells and doing all this stuff that you miss the people that really you're supposed to invest with. Because I feel like these people hold you hostage.
Yes.
It's just unhealthy. Like it's just it's almost like a habit over here where when you can break that and you can still love those people, like, or at least not maybe love them, but don't judge them, right? And still pray for them. I always say I can't be mad at anybody I pray for, but I can still pray for people, but they don't have to get any more of me than is absolutely necessary, right? And from that side. And so we want to wrap up. I would love to know kind of your ask. I'm on here. Y'all know that I don't monetize this. I'm not here to make money on this. This is my time to take my friends and to be able to introduce them to new friends. But how can we support what your calling is? How can they get in touch with you? Tell us really, and then how can they refer you to other people? I would love for you to just be inundated from today.
Thank you. Yeah. So first, gumballove.com. Don't forget there's 3 L's. So that's my website. You can contact me there. I'm on Instagram. Melissa Jane Roberts is my Instagram. So if you put in Melissa Roberts Gumball Love, you'll find me, if you just Google it. And so if this resonates with anyone, you're like, I need to understand more. I actually have a beta quiz that I have live right now that my clients have been using. So if you're like, I want to take this quiz, there's somebody in my life that maybe you're married to somebody you're dating, you're scared to date, or you just want to learn more. I do a free call. So I do a free call to anyone listening, a free 45-minute coaching call. So you can tell me your story, what's going on, what you're going through, if coaching makes sense for you, or there's lots of stuff coming up if that's not in your budget, but you can just get a feel for it. So I'm offering that right now. And then if you want to get on the list for the quiz, so if you just want a free coaching call, like here's my situation, we'll jump on a call, do that. Absolutely. So send me an email, melissa@gumballove.com. And then, I'll send you a link to my calendar so you can just book it and we'll walk through it because it's a lot to take in. And if you have somebody in mind, I have the most incredible group of clients right now. They have had the most life-changing experiences. And I'm so excited to bring this out in a new way. Website, Instagram, if you want to share it. A lot of people are a little like scared to talk about this publicly if you're having a relationship issue. So feel free to DM me anywhere too on Instagram or Facebook, because I know sometimes it's not something you want to broadcast publicly. So I have lots of private clients that nobody ever hears about because they're like, I don't want anyone knowing. And I totally get that. So I think the biggest thing I want people to know is nobody's too big of a mess. Some people are like, am I too hopeless? No, the bigger the mess, the better. I love it. Like I will just thrive in helping anyone, no matter where you are. I always say, I don't care if you're a hooker right now, I'm going to help you. Like whatever you're doing, I will help you because I meet you exactly where you are because I know how to get people out of this mess and to find better relationships and ultimately the love of your life. Like that's what I want to help people do. So if you haven't had babies yet, that you have healthy babies and secure real love relationships. That's truly my mission, is to get people married to their true love so that they have kids that don't need therapy. Like what would that be? Let's have kids that don't need therapy. They're like, what's anxious attachment? What's avoidant? They'll have no idea and they will go on and find their love and we can stop the cycle. That's really what I want to do.
Oh my gosh. You know what? If we put as much time into that as we did the crazy political world, like politics doesn't change anything, but if we could get healthy people married, having babies, we could truly take over the world. I love I
Yeah.
love that. Oh my gosh, Melissa, I love you so much. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry for the little glitch in the beginning, and
All
we're
right.
gonna get this out. Whenever I post this up there, I'm gonna have all of her information. Y'all have an amazing week. Next week, the tool in your toolbox, Veronica Tenike is going to be talking about discovering your core values and how that helps you filter your yeses and your nos with what fills your calendar. And then that we're going to really drill into erase and replace. So y'all have a great week, and I will see you later. Okay, bye-bye, y'all.
Thank you so much, Diana.